Welcome, friends. Glad you could join me again for another All Hands on Tech Live developer stream. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope you're doing well, and hope you're ready to geek out about some Electron, JavaScript, Node.js, HTML, CSS, fun technologies. Um, of course, you know, folks like to poke fun at JavaScript. It can be challenging at times. I give a talk about the state of JavaScript and how we got to where we are today with the language. I mean, it does have a pretty rocky start and storied background with some of the evolution of the language, and there's weirdness and quirks that still exist in the language to this day, and they're there because they have to be at this point. Because if they fixed some of that weird quirky behavior, it would it'd break the internet because it's expected to be there. Um, but I still think it is a wonderful, expressive language that is capable of doing just about anything. That's why I love it so much. It's universal. Like Visa. It's everywhere that you want to be. Whether it's building web apps or client apps, you can build desktop apps like we're doing with this Electron teleprompter app. You can build server side APIs and server based applications and serverless functions and all kinds of amazing stuff, all with one language. You can even do IoT and um, all kinds of interesting and fun projects. So I highly recommend JavaScript, even though it can be a bit of a pain at times. I still think it's an extremely valuable and useful skill to have. It's ubiquitous, universal, it's everywhere, and it's a good tool to have in the tool belt. Um, Thank you for joining, and I hope you're here to learn some stuff about Electron and Node.js, JavaScript. We're going to do some HTML stuff today, and for those of you that are joining for maybe the first time, we are building together a desktop teleprompter application that you can use to display a script up on a teleprompt screen and be able to load any kind of script marked in markdown format into the app, be able to scroll around in that script so that you can do interviews or podcasts or videos. You can record tutorials and things like that and be able to follow along on a script or at least some notes or something like that that make it much easier to to do. To give you an idea, I am using I've got a setup here where I've got a computer in front of me. I've got a uh, um, camera directly in front of me that I can look at, and I have a teleprompter screen where I can be looking directly at the person that I'm talking to or see um, the script or presentation that I am giving. Give you an idea, this is my setup here in my office, my home office. I've got my laptop here and another monitor here where I do my coding and so forth. And then here you can see is uh, I have an iPad that is reflected onto a screen, and it's a very special kind of glass that allows it to be reflected so that I can see it, but the camera that's on the other side of that glass does not see that image. This is, a beam splitter type glass. It's been, the technology's been around for a long time. Politicians and you know hosts and people have been using teleprompters for years to be able to read what's on the screen, or at least have notes of what they should talk about on the screen, and still be able to make eye contact directly with the camera, which is really cool. I mean, it's if you do any kind of speaking or presenting, or you record any videos, or you're just doing interviews, or having conversations with folks over Zoom, a teleprompter that sits in front of your camera can make a big difference, because you can, you know, make on eye contact with the camera. Um, I recommend, even if you don't do a teleprompter screen, you get some googly eyes stickers and stick those on your camera, so that you are reminded to look at your camera when you're talking to folks over video conferencing. All right. So again, thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. Uh, Grab the source code if you're interested in following along with the app that we're building, or if you're interested in sending me feedback, or if you find an issue with with the code, or have questions, or you have ideas for things that we could improve in the application, go to my GitHub repository slash Reverent Geek slash Electron dash teleprompter, and enter those suggestions that you may have there. You can also contact me in lots of different ways. I'm Reverent Geek everywhere. ReverentGeek.com is my website. I'm Reverent Geek on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn as David Neal. Let's take a look at the code. So we are several weeks into building this project. I'm going to switch cameras over here. Do grab the source code if you find it. And I'm going to turn my grab the source code if you want to follow along, or if you want to do some work on it yourself. Play around with the code. Where we left off last time we were together on a stream is we were starting to create a feature in the application where we could use either the keyboard or a clicker to be able to advance in the script. So I've got my clicker today to test with as we build this, and just to make sure everything's working the same as when we left it last time, I'm going to run the application. So as a refresher, when you download the source code for the project out of Git, you need to have a recent version of Node.js installed on your computer. That could be Node 16 or even 18. I recommend version 16. That's the version that is currently LTS, or long-term support, and is the most compatible, stable version of Node that you can get right now. So with Node.js installed, in a nutshell, you want to download the source code either using Git or by downloading the code and extracting the code from a zip file. You'll want to open up a terminal or a command prompt and change to that folder and run npm install, and that will read the package.json file that's in that project to discover all the dependencies that are required, and then download those and install them for your operating system. Now, Electron is designed to be able to run on any OS, modern OS. So Chrome, or Mac OS, and Windows are supported. Cannot today to build mobile applications is all that would be cool. So npm run npm start to launch the application. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to hide some of these other windows so you have more of a contrast. But this is the teleprompter, so that you can. It is kind of a translucent. It's got some transparency to it so that you can see through it. So whatever the script is sitting on top of, you can still read the script, but see whatever video or presentation that that you have up on your screen, so that you can continue to make eye contact or keep in context with the other things that you may have up on the screen. Sounds like well, the application's working as we expect so far. There's since Electron is a Node.js and Chrome kind of married together to create a desktop application, you do have access to the developer tools that are part of Chromium. So I clicked on or did the keystrokes, Command Option I, but you can also go up to the edit menu or one of these. Yeah, under View, there's Toggle Developer Tools, just like you can if you use the Chrome browser. And that's what brought up this information here on the right. And it may be a little small to read, but there's some keyboard events that have been logged to the console. So if I hit the right arrow key on my keyboard, I've already got a console log message in the code that logs that event into the JavaScript console. So I can see that I pressed the arrow right key, and if I hit the left arrow, I get an arrow left. Let's take a look at the. I've got a clicker here, a presentation clicker. So if I press the button on the clicker to advance, you see that the clicker, any kind of remote clicker that you have is actually just a miniature keyboard that does a couple of things. It has the main button is the same as pressing the arrow right on your keyboard. And if I hit the back button on the remote, then I get an arrow left event fired. So it's not anything high tech. These presentation remotes are just acting as keyboard shortcuts to advance slides back and forth when you're using something like PowerPoint or Keynote. So we want to take advantage of listening for these keystrokes and be able to advance the script up and down from one section to another. And that's where we left things on the last stream. So we got as far as logging the events. So we have a console log event, and I know that if I get the arrow right, then I'm looking to advance the script, and if I get the arrow left, then I want to go back to the previous script. So how are we going to solve moving the script around? So I've put some thought into it, and I think what I would like to do, since we're using Markdown, right now I have this this Markdown file that's in the project. Later, I'm going to add a feature to this application that will allow you to open any Markdown file. But for now, it's kind of hard-coded that it lives inside this client folder, and you can, if you have the source code, you can update the script and use it. So the thing that I want to do is use the H2, the heading 2. So this, if you're familiar with Markdown, or if you're not familiar with Markdown, it's a syntax for formatting HTML kind of shorthand stuff. So one hash sign or pound symbol is an H1, gets converted to an H1 tag. So when this markdown gets converted to HTML, it turns this line here, teleprompter script version 1, into an H1 tag. It's surrounding that text. And these are H2 tags. And then underneath the H2 tag, I've got some bullet points and things like that just to fill some space in. But what I'm thinking, what I'd like to do is use the headings, specifically the H2 headings, as the kind of anchors for moving throughout the script. I want to, when we get those key presses for the right arrow or left arrow, I want to jump to the next heading, the next H2 heading in the HTML document. If that, hopefully that makes sense. So your script is just a series of these blocks that are bound by the headings. And just for grins, I'm going to grab some more dummy text to add to this script. I'm going to use one of my favorite tools. You may have heard of Lorem Ipsum. I present to you Bacon Ipsum. So let's grab a couple of paragraphs of text. Let's make it spicy. Give me some bacon. So I've got 2 paragraphs of just random bacon related text, and I'm going to paste that in to these sections. I'm going to move this one down to point number 2, point 3. I'm just going to repeat that same text again. Well, you know what? Let's generate some new ones. Why not? Just to know that we've got different things. So it just creates a random text. So now if we run this script again, if we run our app again, you see that there's all that paragraph of information, and I want the well, hang on a second. Get rid of that window. I want to be able to see anything that comes up on the screen. You can see that there's point. Here's the first point. Here's point number 2. Here's point number 3. And what I want to do, I can scroll through this using, my mouse or trackpad, but I want to be able to use the arrows on the keyboard or on a clicker to be able to jump from one block to the next. And since we're dealing with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we can take advantage of one of the features in HTML that's been around for a long, long time, and that is anchor tags, named anchor tags. So you may have seen like a URL where you've got, this path that's included, the domain, and then a path to a resource. And then at the end, there may be a hashtag or, pound symbol followed by some more text. And that jumps to the document, the HTML document, wherever that anchor tag lives on the page, moves, jumps to that section in the document, and that's basically what we want to recreate here. Um, let's see. I need to make sure I'm following the questions. um, this man forgets more in one day than I've learned in the last year. Well, I do forget a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I've got that kind of accumulated knowledge, but I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. Um, Mark says, I used Tipsum when I worked for a company in Yorkshire as I thought it might be relevant. It generated Yorkshire prose, and I got told off for it. Tried the steak one and offended um, some of our other testers in the system under test. Didn't make sense. That's true. Um, I do talk a lot about bacon and bacon related stuff. I'm a fan of bacon, but yes, there are people who, for one reason or another, don't eat bacon, and are not always happy about that. Um, but I hope everyone realizes that it's all in fun. I hope it's uh, you know, I like to play on the fact that people know me because of my reputation for loving bacon. All right. Um, so let's go back to our script. What we need to do, or what I want to be able to accomplish, is creating, first of all, creating named anchor tags that exist in the HTML and uh, have some JavaScript that will jump um, the from one location to another. And we have in our one of these, let's see, our main JS is where the application is created and started. We have a teleprompter preload, which is kind of a an in between block of code that can do a bunch of kind of back end work in between when as the app the window is loading. And this today is where we have our code to get the content file. So it reads the content.markdown file, and it uses a markdown to HTML converter to convert the markdown to HTML. So at this point, when convert MD to markdown is called, is when we have our HTML generated. So either here in this function or here in this function after we get the HTML, we need to um, inject these anchor tags to be able to jump from one um, section to another. So there's two things we need to do. We need to update the HTML that gets parsed from Markdown, and we need to add more logic to our client side JavaScript so that we can jump from one section to another. So let's first take a look at the this section that generates the HTML. So I'm going to create a new function just to keep things kind of separate, and we compose these things together. Let's create a new function that is let's call it inject uh, an- uh, heading anchors. It takes in HTML and it's going to return HTML. So down here in our code, we can say updated HTML equals inject, and then we use our updated HTML with when we set the body of the interface with our script. So up here is where we need to return whatever the new HTML is. So I'm going to use, I got a question here. It's my first time watching the stream and also my first time using Electron. When I try to start, I get the following error. npm start Electron. The platform failed to initialize. Exiting. Electron exited with signal sig seg v. So Marcel MFA, cool. I am glad that you are trying to run the code and you are on Windows using WSL and code. That's good to know that you're on a Windows machine. So the first question would be, did you try running npm install to install the dependencies, and what version of Node do you currently have running? You can know that by going to the teleprompter or your command prompt and typing node space -v. So I'm currently running 16.17.0, which I believe is the latest version of 16. So I'm using NVM on Mac OS to be able to manage versions of Node. So if I do NVM ls remote 16, which goes and queries the system that NVM uses to deliver versions of Node, it's confirms that I am running the latest and greatest 16.17. Let's see. WSL. Don't think WSL supports X server yet, but could be wrong. Don't run Electron app from inside WSL. Yeah, I'm not familiar with WSL. So I can at some point, if we have time later today, before the end of the hour, I don't have it on this machine, sorry, but I do have Parallels installed on my another computer where I could fire up a Windows terminal and confirm that the code, or test it myself to see if I can reproduce the
You can find Windows
issue.
Terminal on Amazon. For Windows
Terminal, find is Power Window Regulator. Windows subsystem for Linux.
It's $6 with delivery by August 26th. Choose this
Computer.
option in Amazon.
Sorry, I said a keyword that kicked off my Alexa. Whoops. So Windows subsystem for Linux. Yes, I have used that in the past. I don't know that I've used WSL with Electron. I sure hope it works. I mean, it ought to, but there could be some interesting issues there to work through. I'll definitely look into that after we get done. because I want to make sure that whatever we're building can run on Windows as well as Mac OS and Linux. All right, where was I? Oh, so we need to convert the inject our heading anchors, and I'm going to use a um, a touchy or you know a controversial tool in programming, and that is regular expressions. Regular expressions are um, very powerful, but they can also, when they go wrong, they can go wrong spectacularly. Um, let me find some some code here. So in JavaScript, there's a couple of different ways that you can use regular expressions. You can there's a like a regex class that you can create an instance of, but you can also use syntax to declare a a regex. So I'm going to call this uh, regex equals, and this is where um, this is what it kind of looks like. You've got slashes, and you've got some pattern matching in between the slashes, and then after the closing slash, you can have some global flags like uh, global and I think is for uh, case. I don't think that we need case, but um, well, before we do that, let me let me comment that out, and let's run the application, and let's look at the HTML that gets converted from the markdown. So if we run npm start, we've got the window up here, and I'm going to press Control Command I to bring up the developer tools. Um, yeah, I've got some kind of issue with my code. I guess I didn't comment that out, or I didn't save it after I commented it out. So let's save that, and then I can refresh it. Okay, so here's I wish there was I was talking about this last time about increasing the font size of the console. Now you can do this in Chrome using the same, like, no, that's not it. The zoom in and out works fine for the the script on the left, but it doesn't change the the console. Um, I need to I need to figure that out one of these days. Um, so, or what I was doing, I got too many squirrels happening. So, looking at the HTML content, what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this so we can read it better. So I'm going to take the body, copy the element, come over here so that we can read it. And this is the HTML So this is our content file, the markdown. Teleprompter script version 1, hello stream viewers, idea 123. Here's our bacon ipsum text. And when we convert that markdown to HTML, you see that the H1 tag wraps around the heading. You got an H2 tag, and it has an ID of hello stream viewers. So the markdown converter is doing this automatically for us. So one thing we could do, you see the unordered list gets turned into an unordered list in HTML. The block of text gets wrapped in a paragraph tag. So we have these IDs, and we have like hello stream viewers, point 2, point 3. So we've got some IDs in here that are automatically created for us. That's really cool. So I don't know if we'll use those, but that's awesome that the HTML markdown converter does that. So in our regex, I want to look for any H2 tag and let's see. I got some cheat code over here, that some stuff that I've already written before to help me out. Okay. So I'm looking for an H2 tag, and I'm going to look for the ID. And I want to grab what's inside the ID and use that as part of the, you know what? I don't even need that. Sorry, I'm talking to myself as I'm thinking about this code. I think what I want to do is find an H2, maybe a space after the H2, and I want to look for everything except a closing bracket. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that H2 and I'm going to append on the end of it an anchor tag that has the anchor that I want to look for in the code. So everything except the closing, and then I want to end with a closing. So this is going to match everything after the space in an H2. So if we look at the regex that I've written so far would match everything up to the last, the next bracket, and then add that bracket or that less greater than symbol. So this should match all H2 tags and include the entire H2 tag. And that's our regular expression. I'm going to get the matches for that. So HTML, apply the match function using our regular expression, and then iterate over those matches. Well, let's just just for grins, let's console log those matches and see what that looks like. So if we come over here and I hit refresh and I look at the console, it's matched two H2 tags, hello stream viewers and point two. Is that correct? I thought we had three. Yes, we do have three. Oh, I didn't. This is not an H2, it was an H1. So if I save this, I'll have to restart the app because if we save anything outside a client script, we have to do a hard reload. And now I look at the console log. We have matched all three H2 tags that are currently in our script, which is what we want. So now we're going to loop over the matches. Let's use a for loop. Let I equals 0. I is less than matches.length. Increment. And we're going to say HTML dot equals HTML dot replace matches I, which is the H2 block, with let's do a template string here. Reintroduce the H2 tag and then add a name tag, anchor tag, that is I. So we should end up with a name tag after each heading that is like by number 0, 1, 2, so forth, however many headings we have. And now let's refresh this. I guess I'll have to run it again. Start. Uh-oh. So I guess we have an error. Something didn't work right. Uh, 20 read app state. Oh, so it's not in the code that we were just working on. It's in the read app state. Unexpected end of JSON input. So a couple of episodes ago, we added a feature to the application that would read and write state of the application. And I guess me closing the app from the prompt instead of using the file quit or the regular keystroke on the application must have somehow corrupted the object state file. So that's in this utils, and we've got this read app state, read JSON. So this could happen for one reason or another. So we need to account for that. So we check to see if the file exists. If it exists, we read it. Let's wrap this in a try catch error handler. And let's console log the error. And if we have an error, then we'll return the default config. Let's also console log error reading state file. Let's try running that. So error reading state file, and syntax error, unexpected end of JSON input. So the app did run now. It did load. It's just back to not having the size and position that normally would have. Okay. Let me double check if we have any hide these other windows so we can see it. And I'll do Command Option I. And let's look at the code here. Yeah, so it should, I think we've got what we want. So if I copy the element and paste that into our body here, or over here, we now see that each H2 tag now also includes a anchor inside the H2. So we got name equals 0, name equals 1, name equals 2. Now we've got some anchor tags that we can jump to. Now we need to write the JavaScript that will do that work. So in the teleprompter, this is the client side JavaScript that is listening for those events. We're going to jump from one to another. I'm going to comment out this console log, and we're going to start with having our, let's call it script index equal 0. So if we advance to the next section, then we need to say script index increments. And if we're decreasing, for going back, we can say script index minus, but we should also not jump too far ahead or too far behind. Like doesn't make any sense to keep decrementing the value if it's less than 0 or if it's at 0. So we can say if script index is greater than 0, Then we can decrement it. And then if script index is equal to the number of H2 tags we have, then we shouldn't increment it as well, which that could be, how do we know that? I don't. There's probably a way we could do that using some type of element, part of the DOM. But for now, I'll try to, let's just get this to work and then we can solve that problem maybe in a moment. So script index. So the incrementing and decrementing is based on the keystroke, but the actual jumping from um, one element to another, that's kind of like it happens regardless. So it's the same code. So let's actually use a um, a single function that we can call to do that. So let's call this jump to section, and actually let's put this, well, no, let's take in an index and we'll say we'll get the URL, the current URL for our document. And we'll say location dot href equals pound plus index. And then history dot replace state with our URL. So I think that'll work. Let's see, jump to section, script index, jump to section, script index. Let's test this. Oops, hit the wrong one. Start. Well, it jumped one time. Console, our good friend console log. Let's make sure that it's doing at least calling the function like we would expect. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to bring up the console here. And if I hit the right arrow, I get a 1. Oh, it's always 1. No matter what I do, it's always 1. Why is that? Let's quit that. maybe because of the scope of this event, maybe let's add it to the top here, and instead of using I think it might be the because of scoping, it, that variable needs to be declared somewhere else. One, two, three, two, 1, 0. All right, so it's doing what I would expect. It is incrementing and decrementing. It's at least, it's going way beyond the number of elements that we have on the screen, but it is jumping from thing to thing as we would like for it to. So if I close the and hide everything else and use the my clicker. Can't brain today. Sorry. We should. There's my clicker. Yep, I can advance, I can forward, and I can go back. Now, one thing I'm noticing, a couple of things right away. So I'm at point 2 and I try to advance forward. I would like for point 3 to come up to the top of the script, but it can't. And the reason it can't is there's not enough space or HTML after point 3 to it's at the bottom of the document. It's at the end. So there's nothing for it to scroll to because it's at the bottom of the document. So I would like to artificially add a bunch of space beyond the final point so that the document has a place to scroll, more screen real estate to scroll to. And we can do that by close the application and come to where we were updating the HTML. Let's say, how did I do that before? Using the handy dandy repeat function that's now in JavaScript. So I'm going to add an empty paragraph tag with a space, non-breaking space in it. And I'm going to repeat that 10 times. So I'm appending to the HTML 10 empty paragraph tags to pad the bottom of the HTML. Now, if we run this, hide my other windows, and I jump to 2. Now I jump to 3, and 3 jump to the top of the screen. So I have, more space that I can scroll to, but definitely enough space to make sure that 3 jumps to the top. So 1, 2, and 3. And we could get even fancier with this and like only show the block of script from one to another. That might want to do that, but I don't know. I still like the ability to scroll the entire script and see the entire script. Um, so I don't think that's much of a an issue there. The other thing is knowing how many elements there are, so we don't continue to increment beyond the end of the script. And I think we can do that using um, some fancy DOM stuff. So let's find our sections. We can get elements by name. Um, get elements by name. So we have named anchor tags. This is the logic I was trying to think of. So we have named anchor tags of 0, 1, and 2. So if we try to find the next one, and if that one exists, then we know we can increment and jump to that section. Um, that way, if we like try to jump to, find an element named number 4, and that one doesn't exist in the document, we're not actually going to advance to that section. So let's close the application, start it again, and jump to thing. Let's take a look at our console log, and we are not advancing beyond 2, and we're not going below 0. So that pretty much solves that feature that we want. Let's close the application, add our code, and commit that. Adds clicker keyboard support. Cool. We're a few minutes over, scheduled time. No big deal. And our friend Marcel MFA did find that if you're developing on Windows, you should avoid using the Windows subsystem for Linux. Not quite compatible with Electron, it seems, which is a real bummer because, these days, if I were to switch back to doing development on Windows, I would definitely want to live in WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux, because I've become familiar and comfortable with using that kind of shell environment and those commands. So that's a bummer. Um, I'll have to look more into uh, what the issues are there with developing for Electron. But of course, WSL, and that's only the development experience. The Electron applications will absolutely run on Windows. If you use Visual Studio Code on Windows, that is an Electron application. So there's definitely support for running Electron apps on Windows. It's just as a developer creating Electron apps, apparently there's currently an issue with using WSL. Thanks for sticking with me throughout. If you have any questions that you want to send me, you can do that through the GitHub project, Reverend Geek slash. Well, let me bring up that source code. You can grab the source code for this project at Reverend Geek slash Electron-teleprompter on GitHub. And there's an issues and a project tracker there. If you have any issues that you run into or suggestions on what we can do to improve, next week when we get together, the two things that I want to focus on next, one is being able to open any script file, say use a Command O or Control O on Windows to open a file and be able to open any markdown file that may exist on your computer to use as a script. And I want to go through the steps to package and create an installer for the app so that other people can use it, not just us geeks that know how to run code. And that'll kind of put a bow on the MVP of this application. I think it'll be useful at that point for practically anyone. Still a lot of stuff we could do with it, but at least it'll be working and others can use it besides us geeks. Thanks again for joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and send me some feedback. Again, I'm Reverend Geek on Twitter, Instagram, reverendgeek.com is my website. I would love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions or feedback on how I'm doing or what you would like to see in the future, what are you getting out of these streams? I hope you're learning something, and hope I'm not making too much of a fool of myself, right? Well, until next time, my friends, see you on the next stream. Peace.